Ethiopia's government is now urging citizens to join the fight against resurgent Tigrayan forces. The call comes as Tigrayan forces are now pushing beyond their own region in a 9-month-old war that has sparked a major refugee crisis. The call to arms came in a statement from the office of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. He says now is the right time for all capable Ethiopians who are of age to join the defense forces, special forces and militias to show patriotism. To get a better sense of the unfolding crisis in Ethiopia, we're now joined by Africa security and policy analyst Abdullahi Boru Halakhe, who's in Washington D.C. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you. It's unusual to hear a Prime Minister calling citizens to help fight other citizens.
Yeah, it is. I think there are many things that are very unusual about this war that started in November, Peter. And this is now just the latest stage in that. If you're making no distinction between the civilian and the militants or the rebels, if you will, for that purpose, you are entering a very dangerous space. But it's also another reflection of how difficult situations is for Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. When this started, he made it very clear that this was going to be a very short short engagement that they call this a law enforcement. Lo and behold, unsurprisingly for anybody who had any sense of what starting a war looks like, here we are now. He's encouraging all Ethiopians to be mobilized for a war.
A few weeks ago, Ethiopian troops pulled out of Tigray, and he suggested that that was planned and that everything was under control. He even suggested that if needs be, he could mobilize thousands of troops at very short notice. What's changed between then and now?
I think what changed really is, Peter, one of the distinction of this war, and it is a distinction of many other wars, but it's very specific to this war, is what is truth and what is not has completely been blurred, right? We were told that this is going to be a short operation. It has not turned out to be that way. We were told that when they ended this conflict, at least temporarily, when I think that is when the Prime Minister declared, unilateral, ceasefire, we were told that this is, because they could do that. But the reality is, Peter, if you speak to anybody who has got any sense or anybody who's closer to this conflict, they will tell you that the Ethiopian forces has recorded significant amount of damage, that the military is practically non-existent. What we have right now as Ethiopian National Defense Force has completely been shattered. People are talking close to between 30 and 50,000 Ethiopian forces have been killed by the Tigray Defense Force. You've got to ask yourself, that is somewhere between 4 or 5 divisions of the military, and some others are in an incredibly difficult shape. So what you're looking is a government that is really struggling in terms of, military capability to go against, Tigray Defense Force. Never mind, troops from neighboring country in Eritrea were mobilized to help in. Then you've got to ask yourself, Peter, that you got troops from outside another country, that is Eritrea, to come and help you, and you still could not subdue Tigray. So what are we left with? That is just number one implication. Number two, could this inspire other groups that have got problems with Abiy and then lead to further fragmentation? And third, and very importantly, if all these pockets have got their own local militias that can be mobilized at will, all right, what does that mean for the future of Ethiopia as a united country, as we know, me and you?
So we've already started to hear stories of casualties in neighboring Afar region. So perhaps what you're saying has already started. There's almost a contagion that may spread to other parts of the country in terms of, as you say, this project of Africa, of Ethiopia's federal project may start to come apart at the seams.
Thank you. And that, I think, Peter, is at the heart of this. When Abiy launched this war, it was a fight between two diametrically opposed visions of Ethiopia. There is the vision of Ethiopia since the passage of the constitution in 1995 of multi-ethnic federalism. Does it have its own problems? Absolutely. However, it prevented a tinderbox situation that we are experiencing right now. At the very minimum, it acted as a safety valve for a lot of problems that exist in Ethiopia. When you have, over 110 million people, over 100 ethnic groups in nation states that we have on the continent, that helps when resources comes from the center to some of these local authorities. It helps bring down the political temperature. Correct. The second vision is the vision that is, Abiy and his people have. And that is the vision of hyper-centralization of the state, where most of the things are done from Addis. The problem with that vision is people have tested since 1995, what federalism can provide, as well as before that, Ethiopia has centralized authority all through its life, from its empire days, from the Dark time. And, one of the most distinct characteristics during that time was a very few groups, a very few elite from a specific group benefited disproportionately than the rest of the country. The story of Ethiopia, the recent history of Ethiopia that most of us can associate with, is the story of famine. Since 1995, apart from, I think, 2001, when famine hit the Horn region, we've not had that. Ethiopia, with all its problems under TPLF, and we shouldn't gloss over just because we are discussing the problems with Abiy, was able to feed itself, was able to provide, services, was able to provide military, across the region, peacekeeping operation inside Somalia. I think that irreconcilable differences, I think now we see Abiy's push towards that is yielding probably a bigger problem, a problem of disintegration of Ethiopia as we know it.
Will citizens have the appetite to go and fight in Tigray, especially after seeing Ethiopian troops being paraded by the Tigrayan forces in public after being captured?
It could go either way as well, Peter. People might be mobilized at will, which could be done, right? Because for 27 years, TPLF was the biggest player in the country. And other groups might have, grievances towards the TPLF, and the larger, TPLF is Tigray People's Liberation Front. And that could be translated into an anti-Tigray sentiment. However, domestically within Tigray region, it could also be mobilized to create a siege mentality saying, hey, look, everybody is against us, beginning with the federal government. Why don't we close ranks and be able to be mobilized internally? I've got to tell you, Peter, not every Tigray benefited from the TPLF. Many actually had a lot of problems with Tigray. But once the federal government started coming after them, they closed rank, and that managed, the TDF to mobilize. However, we've got to also, look at the other side of the same equation. Not many people are going to be very happy with Abiy as a person, as a prime minister, but also his idea of centralization. I'll give you an easy example. Abiy, is part Oromo. The Oromia region, probably one of the most regions that have suffered because of the centralization. Post-1995, the Oromo language is being used in the Oromia region. The Oromo Liberation Army refused to join Abiy, so it could have, right, the glue that brings most of these people together of an anti-Tigray forces, but also simultaneously bring together other groups that have got grievances, not just with Abiy, but the idea that he represents of a centralized Ethiopian state. So it could go both ways. And none of these are good options that me and you, or anybody who wishes Ethiopia goodwill, would want to see.
are we past the point of no return in terms of perhaps finding a way to go back to the table and keep Ethiopia together? Because Tigray has now started to move beyond its own region, which suggests that gloves are off, the game is over, and that for them there's only one final solution left, and that's to separate itself from the Ethiopian federal project.
And that is the biggest worry. As an incredibly optimist person, all right, who's lived through, the wars in Somalia that led to where we are, just to give you a perspective, both countries, Ethiopia and Somalia in 1991, experienced the civil conflict around the same time. But Ethiopia was able to pull it together and able to have, what we now currently speak as an Ethiopian, project as a country, right? I do believe there is still a space within which this can be resolved. The distance between Tigray and Abiy Ahmed is incredibly, they are farther apart. The mutual distrust between these groups is very far apart. But, a few months ago, the TDF and TPLF released the terms for a political negotiation, because we can go up and down, but there is only one way of resolving this, and that is through a political negotiation. But the TPLF and TDF has made very clear terms, and some include the withdrawal of forces from the Tigray region, the withdrawal of Eritrean forces, getting their money back. All these are fairly, basic start to build that confidence for us to be able to have a negotiated settlement. The space is still there. My biggest worry, just to, for your viewers, is if this persists. This started in November, we are in August, we're almost hitting 1 year back. I think after that, we'll be having a different conversation. And, Article 39 of Ethiopia's constitution provides for secession. The terms, the constitutional term for achieving that is fairly laborious and it's not very easy. But my sense is TPLF are more amenable to a political discussion, to a political settlement, as currently than Abiy and his group. But for TPLF also, if they form, they split, they go their separate way and have a separate country, the concern is, right, they will be sandwiched between two countries. That is Eritrea, with which they fought in 1998-2000, and the Ethiopian government. So I don't think it's something that they want. But I think if we are not very careful, they would rather go for that than leave under Ethiopian that is led by Prime Minister Abiy. And that is not, a very easy proposition.
Abdullahi Boru Halakhe, thank you so much indeed. Your insights and thoughts on the situation in Ethiopia always greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Peter.